Well, welcome, Andrew, to the group
Hello.
chat.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah. How's Vegas been treating you so far?
Oh, wow. It's Vegas. I had the buffet this morning and a giant cup of coffee. So that
Take advantage.
It got me off to a good start. Yeah.
Good.
Had a good dinner last night, though.
Oh, where'd you go?
We were at Maggiano's with the startup experts community. So about 100 HR leaders. And that's another community that I'm a part of. I'm an OG with them.
I love that.
Nice. And I know Transform's starting today, right? Tuesday?
Yeah, today's Tuesday. I think it officially kicked off yesterday. And boy, there have been events on Sunday as well. And then last week was Unleash, which was another HR conference. So some people are spending 2 weeks in Vegas.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah, 3 nights is plenty for me.
That's
Yeah.
hard on the pockets.
Yeah, that's right.
What do you have planned for today with Transform?
Yeah, well, today I was looking forward to this conversation.
Okay.
I have another podcast appearance coming up at 11:30 with another group, and then a couple of sessions that I'm looking forward to, meeting a few HR friends along the way. But the highlight of today is a dinner that I'm hosting with alumni from my exec ed program. Yeah, so really looking forward to getting people together from all over the place. And, it's kind of a twofer where you're at the conference, other people are here anyway, so we get to come together.
That's so much fun.
Yeah.
And you're on a panel tomorrow, right?
I'm moderating a panel tomorrow. Yeah, with the folks from Otter AI.
Oh, okay.
Otter, okay.
Yeah, so we're talking about transcribing conversations and really the use cases that AI can be used for. Trying to share a little bit more in that space. And I don't know if you all know this, you did some background on me.
Yeah.
We stalked you.
You did.
Yeah.
So you might know that I'm a failed SaaS founder. Yeah, I put far too many of my own dollars and far too much of my own time. And I'm an HR guy by trade and by training, of course.
Yeah.
But I tried to create a SaaS platform using transcription and summaries for one-on-ones.
That's so cool, though.
I thought it was cool. The world wasn't ready for it yet, though.
Would you do it again?
No. I mean, it didn't work out. It wasn't the right timing. So like that, I think that really helped me appreciate the founder journey and the entrepreneur's mindset, where just because I feel passionate about something and because I see an opportunity doesn't mean that the market sees it yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. And ultimately, like, no matter how good the thing is or how good the idea is, you still have to sell it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm interested to dive into that a little bit more. I know I personally would love to create a platform, let that just hit the market.
Yeah.
What was your experience coming from being an HR person, wanting to now be in SaaS? Like, how did you gather your developers? Like, what was your process there?
Yeah. I can't recommend the process that I took because it led me to where I ended up.
Well, put a discretion. Nobody follow.
Please.
This is not the
follow
playbook.
Your own. Yes, that's right. Hey, after being a in-house HR leader for almost 30 years, I saw an opportunity to help companies be more successful, to help HR leaders be more successful. And I have an exec ed program around that. I do mentoring around that. Like, all of what I do today over the past 7 or 8 years is around helping other HR leaders be successful and companies make more money. And I thought that structuring the data of one-on-one conversations would give us micromanaging founders more insight into what's happening and who's doing well and who's working on what. And I thought that would be valuable. Well, turns out you have to code it. And I started working on this before Claude Code, before Lovable, before Vercel, and all the other tools. So I asked my friends at Growth by Design Talent, Adam Ward and Mike Joyner and their team. They built a recruitment. It calculated how many recruiters you needed to support headcount growth in a venture-backed company. Okay. And they worked with a Ukrainian dev shop that did design and product and engineering. And I asked them, I trusted them, who did you use? And I didn't talk to anybody else. I just went with the Ukrainian dev shop, and they were lovely people, very thoughtful. But 2 years later, and by the way, there was a war going on.
Oh, at this
right?
time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so power's going out and people are in other countries. And I'm non-technical, so I didn't really know how to manage them. I didn't really know how to give them a good direction. So anyway, we spent a lot of time, and it was inexpensive by US standards, but I was learning from ground zero and ultimately pulled it out of the Ukraine, started working with fractional product engineering leaders here in the US. That made more progress. Long story, right? It felt long as I was spending the money along the way.
Well, because that was 2 years, right? Before you ended up moving
Yeah, and
over.
it was never full time. It was like my side project.
That's always the case, right?
Well, that's the danger of being an entrepreneur, right? You have these ideas and you chase them, and at some point you have too many trees, and those trees are competing with each other for light and air and nutrients.
That's a really good metaphor to put it.
I love that.
Yeah.
So what did that beta version look like for you? Were you happy with it? Where do you feel like it kind of, in your words, failed? What does that mean for you?
Yeah. Well, where it failed was customers.
Okay.
Yeah. I still do. It's tucked away. I have a working beta version that uses Recall. It's called recall.ai, which is the plumbing between your meeting transcription services. Okay. So it works with Teams and Zoom and Google Meets and all that. Takes the transcriptions, takes the summaries, pipes it into a third party, into my platform, and then it will structure the data based off of whatever you want. Like maybe you want it segmented by what's working well and what's not working well, or maybe you want AI to code this person is on track or off track based on the conversation. Or maybe you want to plant, hey, there are these key goals of the company, and so it will structure that data any way that you want to set it up and make it visible based off of whatever hierarchy you want. So my idea was transparency and visibility into performance. The issue is, it turns out that we humans and HR leaders don't really like the idea of one-on-ones being listened in on.
Yeah.
Right? So as valuable as these AI transcription services are, there's still some sensitivity around when they're listening. Yeah.
We'd love to get a baseline. You talked a little bit about what you did with, 30 years in HR. You have a program. Just give us a baseline. Tell us about your background.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the softball there. Yeah. I'm a HR guy by trade and by training. Master's degree in the field at arguably the top program. Internships and worked at Pepsi and then General Electric, and in between the two, I had my first top job at a startup back during the dot-com boom and then bust. So I was in the top job of a global startup at age 23.
Wow, that's exciting.
Grew it from 25 people to 150 people, and then we went bankrupt during the dot-com bust. So talk about early gray hair. Worked at a lot of places that you've heard of, places that you haven't. Private equity-backed organizations that capital sponsors were coming in and out. Moved across the country multiple times, multiple industries. Long career. I won't cover every stop. The last experience I had was at a company that's now known as Invitation Homes. I helped them go public twice, and we grew from about, $500 million to $25 billion in market cap, and I had a little tiny slice of that that vested during my time there. And so when headquarters moved to Dallas, and my family wasn't ready to move to Dallas, I pulled my parachute. This was back in 2018, and I wrote a book, Scaling for Success. It came out during COVID, so I didn't get my global book tour through that.
It's not too late.
No, well, let's do that. Let's do that global book tour. And that was about people management practices in high growth companies. I saw a lot of awkward people practices in high growth tech, especially in Silicon Valley. And my grounding was in organizations that really cared about the impact on the bottom line, not just competing in the war for talent, but the results of competing in the war for talent. So that's where the book came from. And boy, that was back in 2021 that came out. Somewhere along the way, I hung my own single shingle as a consultant and advisor. I work with multiple private equity investor platforms, usually lower mid-market. I work across their portfolio on organizational effectiveness issues like CEO assessments, leadership team effectiveness. It's like really fun OD type work. And then the book turned into an exec ed program where like really my passion is helping other HR leaders grow in their careers and get further faster than all the bumps along the way that I went through.
Yeah. I just saw you light up there. I don't know if you did.
Oh.
You talked a bit about
Thank you.
coaching. And so I was going to ask you, what is it that you're most passionate about? So that went into that. And is that your accelerator program? Can you share more about
100%. Yeah. People Leader Accelerator. It's a mouthful. It's hard to spell for a lot of people. It's the website. And that's the intent. It's accelerating people leaders, HR leaders. How do you be more effective? How do you contribute to your organization more directly? So many HR leaders, have learned through the school of hard knocks rather than a top tier master's program like I was fortunate enough to go through, or academy companies like Pepsi and GE that are known for being world class at HR. So I had some of that training, and I had the startup pace and private equity, all that comes with that. And so I'm trying to help other people, take some of my lessons and apply them to their own situations. And I do that through this, it's like a niche executive MBA program. It's pretty intensive. It's based on the book that, is research backed. And it's at the same time grounded in the real world where I'm a practitioner. I've done the work. I've walked in their shoes. I do some one-on-one mentoring, but really it's through that program that I found that you can have a bigger impact by not just providing myself and my own experiences, my own care, but by engaging others and a community.
Right.
Yeah.
What's the benefit for people that want to look into it? Is this do you have a community aspect to it? Group mentorship sessions?
Yeah, we're selective. I still turn away more people that apply than we accept into the program because it's so much about the experience of the group, not just about trying to get more people into the cohort. Like I've been fortunate. I've had my bills covered for a while. And so I'm just really trying to find people that will benefit the most from a program like that. And so are you at the point where you can put a lot of yourself in? I like to say you get what you put into People Leader Accelerator. And so are you ready and willing to fully engage in the experience? And so what do you get out of it? You get a real foundation of management, research, science. So when somebody asks you to defend your idea to have this type of performance management process or to change your recruitment model, and they say, well, I was at Google and we did it this way.
Classic.
You can exactly.
Yeah.
You can actually lean on you not just your own personal knowledge and personal experience. You can cite the article from Harvard Business Review in 1983 or whatever that supports the basis for whatever program or process you are you want to recommend.
Right.
Yeah. And so there's that research-backed foundation, but more important than that, it's the community of peers, people in similar jobs, at similar companies, going through similar challenges. That peer aspect, like you're all going through this together, and like the deeper you go, the more real you get. That's so much more valuable than a transactional Slack community or like a social happy hour networking. Yeah.
Gets to be a lot, especially if it's high volume.
Yeah. So we have so many people that have gone on to become chief people officers. We have so many people that are now heads of HR at public companies. And so it's the career growth and confidence that comes with all of that I just get like really excited about.
Yeah. And I know even prior to People Leader Accelerator, you have held the CHRO title quite a bit. So in your perspective, like looking back at all the different companies you worked for, what would you say is an angle that HR needed to change in order to actually influence business strategy?
Yeah. It's actually been less of an issue at the companies that I was the HR leader for, because it was just kind of second nature for me. Like that's how the work was done,
Right.
Yeah.
where I learned how to do the work, right? But at so much venture-backed tech company, it's been all about, at most venture-backed tech companies, it's been more about growth and headcount growth and how quickly can we hire a new go-to-market leader, or the VP of sales is turning over again and we need 100 engineers ASAP.
Yeah.
What I think more HR leaders would benefit from is by working on the right things. And what does that mean? That means be really clear about what your organization is trying to accomplish and how it makes money. And if you're a cash burning startup that's mostly about a product roadmap and getting to PMF, that's fine. Maybe it's accelerating the product roadmap. So it's less about ENPS, employee satisfaction. Attraction and retention is fine, but that's a secondary or even tertiary metric. Like what you're after are the dollars. And so can you talk about, we're able to raise money because we met our milestones with product development. We're able to raise money because we got our first customers. We're able to do our next raise because we're now profitable and we have X million dollars of revenue. And so if you as an HR leader can understand where your org is at and what it's trying to accomplish, and that doesn't require an MBA in finance, by the way. If you can figure that out, then you link your work as clearly and directly to that.
Yeah.
Which is usually something around Salesforce effectiveness, or maybe it's around engineering and product effectiveness. Then you can have a much bigger and more direct impact on your org. And you get budget, and you get respect, and you get influence, and just everything's easier.
Yeah. I think when you think about HR, the competencies that we start off with in our career. So you talk about OD, you talk about talent, you talk about headcount planning. Those are things that are pretty much innate for us as HR leaders. It's something that we grow into. And then there has to be like a shift then when you are in a specific role where you have to start thinking about the business side of it, the strategy. And I think for some people that's a big miss, and that's something that they forget that is also part of their job. Like you can't just be HR as your lane.
Right.
So I think you hit the nail on the head there. Those are just questions I think that aren't asked enough as HR leaders, to be honest.
There's an old, really, I'm going to date myself here. There's an old claymation style movie. It's a holiday movie with Herbie the dentist on the island of lost toys. And this is old. But the idea is that you have these broken toys that are off on an island, from Santa's workshop. And I use that graphic, that meme, in a bunch of my LinkedIn posts. And I talk about HR Island. Like, don't strand yourself out on HR Island working on HR things that aren't really important to anybody other than HR people.
I like that.
And we're guilty of that a lot. We're smart, we work hard, we're trying our best. And I think more people would benefit from a mentor, an advisor, somebody experienced that knows what good looks like, that can help guide them towards like the impact that you can have is understanding some of the basics of the organization that you're with.
Yeah. I think ultimately we need to help business get to their goals. So.
Whatever org we work with.
Yeah.
Some people that have been through my development program are at nonprofits. And so it's less about dollars for them, and it's about feeding the hungry, or it's about supporting the group that their nonprofit exists to benefit. Yeah.
I mean, when you think about HR, most people think, traditionally it's employee relations. So this is quite different.
Keep us out of HR jail. Compliance,
exactly.
Employee relations.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and I write maybe too much about this as well. A lot of the CEOs and founders that we work with don't know what good looks like in our work. So a lot of CEOs and founders at small companies, they tend to be technical founders, right? So you know engineering and you know your product. You probably don't have a background in HR. At bigger, later stage companies, you tend to come from finance or sales. You're a CFO or a go-to-market leader. You probably didn't come from HR. And so our bosses don't know what good looks like firsthand in our role. And there aren't, let's be honest, frankly, there aren't that many really successful strategic HR leaders out there. And so chances are they haven't worked with one either. And so that's all to say, it's up to us to show them what good looks like, because they can't describe it and they can't tell us. They can just describe the pain that they're feeling in the moment based off of whatever frame of reference they have, which is employee relations or benefits.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's up to us to understand how to contribute.
I agree. I think it's trying to lean towards not being a executor and just a task giver, and really being the experts in our field, and then meeting halfway with what your expertise is, and then we can really have that collaboration.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really one of the traps, is being the doer of all the tactical things.
Especially in a smaller organization too, right?
Yeah.
You're doing everything.
Another trap is being the union steward, is being the employee advocate to such an extent that you end up being adversarial with leadership, right? Don't fall into that trap.
Yeah.
You don't want to be the cruise director. You don't want to be the union steward. What you do want to be, I'd suggest, is the internal management consultant. How can your org operate better, meet its goals faster, make more money, whatever that is? Yeah.
Many HR leaders start their careers as functional experts. How do you think this changes for them or affects them in a way to be more influential with executives?
Yeah.
What kind of barriers do you think they come across?
Well, Patrick Lencioni, author of 5 Dysfunctions of a Team and The Advantage and all these great business books, he talks about the concept of team number 1, where, exactly as you mentioned, if you are a functional leader, your training, your experience, your affinity is with that function and with that team. And so you're naturally drawn, if you're a marketing lead, to marketing things. If you're a finance lead, let's have the best accounting, and we're gonna get SOX certified, right? Whatever it is. To be a really effective organization, you've got to elevate a little bit. And your team 1, instead of your department or your function, needs to be the executive team. It needs to be the success of the organization as a whole. And so if we as HR people can elevate and say, what I'm trying to build here is a really successful organization, rather than the coolest HR department that has the highest ENPS scores, but might not be making any money or might not be making progress against the product roadmap. Like, if we can elevate and think about the greater good, and that, I think, it's not just words where all of a sudden you get it. I think there's some building of a muscle. There's some growing into
like a
that
mindset
concept.
shift.
Yeah.
What signals or behaviors would you say could help HR leaders out there thinking, how could I get into that mindset shift into thinking like an executive versus just the functional leader?
Yeah, I love that we're getting specific.
I love specifics.
Yeah. Well, hey, this that makes it more useful for the audience. So thanks for asking. I think I would start with get curious. Be curious with your CFO, with your CEO. Read the latest investor deck. Dig into the all hands material. Look at your latest board deck. What are the strategic goals for your organization? Hopefully you already have access to that. You don't need to have a bunch of conversations to figure it out. All right, so start there. I created a 1-pager that visually cascades in a waterfall fashion. Here are your org's 3 goals. What are the handful of initiatives that support those? Maybe those are HR initiatives, maybe they're not. Like, let's say that one is sell more stuff, have more revenue. And so how are you going to do that? Is that a new product launch? Is that hire more salespeople? Is that have more of our salespeople actually meet quota? Whatever that is. And then the next layer down that we in HR can think about as an enabling function is, what can I do? Where can I set up an initiative that will directly and clearly support whatever is supporting that company goal. So instead of manager training for everybody, maybe we should start with manager training for the sales team if what we're trying to do is get more revenue. And let's measure what quota attainment was before we had the intervention, and let's measure quota attainment after the intervention, or do it with half the sales team so that we can show the difference over time. So instead of this imaginary list of good HR programs that everybody should do, or every good company or every good HR function, and I think we're all guilty of having that imaginary list in our minds.
Yeah.
I mean, for us, it's fun. It's like, oh, I want to do this, 1, 2, 3. But does it
like,
actually
I've done this
ladder
a
up
bunch
to
of
your
times.
pillars? Yeah.
Like, is that what our org needs right now?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
On top of that, it doesn't need to be company-wide, like you said. If the action is for salespeople, like hone in on that, tailor that to them.
Yeah.
And it'll land better.
That's a quick win in my book.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that.
Let's take that one.
And I know you, we just mentioned, as HR leaders, we're trying to be the strategic ones that actually partner with the CEOs, the business executives. I think it's been a longing topic where either people in talent or HR specifically, whatever area you are, you want a seat at the table with those executives. They always want to be talking with them, understanding where the business is going. How do you think you can actually properly land a seat at the table if you're in HR?
I love it. I love it.
Like you can have a seat at the table, but do you actually have those conversations?
But if in your seat at if in your seat at the table you're taking notes and bringing coffee,
exactly,
that's not a true executive seat.
Correct.
So how do you own that executive seat? That's the right question. I just ran a 2-hour-long workshop for the startup experts community yesterday on this topic. So I'll condense into a shorter like podcast style.
Thank you.
You got it. So how do you make the most out of that seat at the table, or how do you get the seat at the table? It starts by identifying the right things to work on. And that means you should be curious on your own. Look at the board deck, look at the all hands deck, look at the strategy deck. There are lots of decks out there. Maybe it's a conversation with your CFO, CEO, founder. What are the most important things? If you don't know, find out. If you are scared to find out, guess and test it with some senior level peers and other functions. Hey, here's what I think might be most important to us right now. Am I roughly right? Like what's actually the answer? That will take you so much further than demanding to sit in on a board meeting or proposing to hire a HR generalist so that you can be more strategic.
Right.
But your CEO doesn't know what being more strategic looks like, and you can't really articulate it, right? So it starts by us understanding what's important, us identifying the right things to work on, us demonstrating that. That makes the most of our seat at the table, where they're going to be pulling us in if they see us working on things that are clearly and directly supportive of the most important things of the org.
I have a question for you on that.
Yeah.
Do you think titles matter for this? Like, can you see somebody maybe at a manager level having a seat at the table?
Yeah.
Do you think that actually matters?
Yeah, don't let title be your excuse. Maybe that's a tagline. There are a lot of HR leaders that are the youngest in years on the planet, in years of work experience, tend to have a more junior title than their peers on the executive team. So you'll have a VP of people and a C of everything else. That's very common. Should you demand the same title? Not necessarily. I'd suggest show your worth, do the work, and then it will be obvious that where you fit in. If you are looking for direction, so proactivity, I think, is a really key concept here. Don't ask what to do. Don't ask what's most important. Validate it, but show, demonstrate, recommend, propose, make things happen. That's the mark of a leader. You're leading. the mark of somebody that's lower and less than is somebody that's like always asking, what should I work on? How can I help you? Like customer service jobs are important and they're valuable, but they aren't paid as well. They aren't held in as high esteem as strategy roles and leadership roles. Yeah. So I hope I answered that.
No, you did. Because I just think a lot of times in any field, HR excluded or included, people maybe wonder, do I have a seat at the table if I am not a VP or I'm not an EVP or director even? So I think it's just a matter of understanding your role in your hierarchy of your org and how, like you're saying, how you can demonstrate that you do get it and then slowly pave your way to get there.
Now, if you're layered, let's say you're not the HR leader at your organization, you're not at the executive table, and your boss doesn't get it. Like that's a very real challenge.
Exactly.
That is very real.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Like it's wonderful if your boss gets it and they have a true seat at the table, if they're strategic, if they're influential. But like, let's remind ourselves, most people aren't. Most people are doing the more transactional, important, but less strategic, less evolved HR work. I'd suggest that you can still map out, here's what I think is important. Here's what I can work on that supports it. And I'm going to start working on it.
Yeah.
Whether you're a manager or a generalist or a C-suite, like it's still kind of the same playbook there.
You talk about helping HR leaders sharpen their judgment. How does that show up, with executives? How can you help them? Is there any sort of like top tips that you can share around that?
Yeah. That's all over my website. You've been on the website. Sharpen your
Told
judgment.
you I stalked you.
Yeah. Well, thank you, I think.
I think.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Well, sharpening your judgment. I mean, this comes back to work on the right things. If you're working on that list of, we have to do an engagement survey and it's performance review cycle time, and let's implement a host of new perks and programs that are disconnected from something that really matters to your org, you are not exercising judgment and discretion. You're just kind of going through the motions of all the HR stuff, right? So the judgment is find the right things that matter the most to your org and to your stakeholders, right? That's the judgment. And then it's, what do you talk about and how do you tie that to evidence and tie that to impact? That's the judgment.
And so you've had experience between startups and then enterprise level.
Boy, the whole, I was employee, 0 at some companies that I've helped start. Officially employee 22 at a startup when I was 22.
Oh, love that.
And then the biggest company I think I worked for was General Electric, which had 300,000 people, or Wells Fargo may have had more at one point as well.
Right.
And then lots of mid-market companies as well.
So when you've been a part, I guess, of those earlier, scrappier ones, when you see them start to scale, if you could maybe point out a common theme of what usually breaks first in an HR system.
In an HR system, what breaks first? Well, are we thinking like HR technology, what breaks? Or
I think in general, right?
Yeah, in general, like whether
processes,
it's people's operations.
Well, I actually wouldn't carve out HR on this. Like HR is part of it.
Yeah.
What tends to break first are the leaders. What tends to break first are the entrepreneurial leaders that started that org are still trying to control.
Right.
And they have trouble letting go. And often they shouldn't let go right away. Like, so how do you make that transition from owner, founder, leader, driver that does everything, that knows everyone, that's involved in everything? Maybe the highest turnover job in startups is the head of sales. Like, how many heads of sales have startups gone through? And that, or whatever specialty the founder happens to have. So if the founder is technical and they're trying to hire a VP of engineering, that VP of engineering rotates like Kleenex.
Gone through that.
And why would you say it does? Like the one that the founder has the most core in.
Yeah, because that's the area that the founder knows enough to be dangerous, doesn't want to fully
Let go.
delegate to a leader, and no one will exhibit the exact same judgment, we're talking about judgment, that they will.
Right.
Right.
No
And
one
so-
matches then, maybe?
Yeah, and I mean, unless we have figured out how to clone ourselves, and AI, I think, is getting close.
Not yet.
in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So what breaks first? It's usually leadership,
Mhm.
and a little bit more context around that. What breaks with leadership is prioritization, communication, delegation. So like, what should the org be working on? Who's doing what? Can my head of sales actually go off and do this on their own, or do they need to work with the head of product also? And how's marketing involved? And is marketing reporting to sales or reporting to the founder? And how do they all work together? And that's where orgs tend to break, is clarity in how work gets done.
Right.
Yeah, and I do a ton of work. There are a few favorite tools, a delegation of authority matrix, a RACI or an ARCI or a RASCI or a DACI. Like, all the consulting firms have different acronyms, but it's basically like, if you're working on a cross-functional initiative, who does what? Who gets a vote? Who gets a veto? Who gets a voice? So there's some frameworks that you can use, but usually it's because things get confusing.
Right.
That's the first thing that breaks, and it often stays broken for a really long time.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
We're talking about founders and CEOs, and we're talking about things breaking. So leadership.
Yeah.
If you are, let's say, the first people leader working directly with a CEO, what should that partnership really look like? What does a successful relationship look like between yourself as a first people leader and the CEO? So let's put in that first scenario too of, you talked about the CEO being very technical. There's a ton of turnover with the VP of engineering.
Yeah.
What would you do in that sort of scenario? Can you walk us through?
Okay. Yeah, I think a lot of success or failure is derived during the interview process.
Okay.
They're assessing you, you're assessing them. You are trying to understand, what are you looking for from the HR leader? Are you just looking for someone to keep you out of jail and make sure that payroll and benefits happen? Are you throwing around flowery ideas like, we want to be a great place to work, but like, ultimately, if you miss your forecasts or your product roadmap lags, then you're going to move to 996? Like, let's be real about that, right? So having deeper, real, authentic conversations with the person that will be leading your organization, that will be your boss. What's important to you? Don't ask what you should work on. Ask what they're working on. What's important to them. Share some ideas there. Some of the best HR leaders that I know talk about that interview process as a way to like test run. So you don't necessarily need to do a contract to hire or consult for a year with that org. But if you're working through the interview process, being curious about what's important to that technical founder, you can understand, you can share some ideas about, well, hey, have you thought about working with a offshore development team? And, oh, you have? Well, how's that gone? Well, it's been really hard from a management perspective. Oh, well, there are some people initiatives that might help with that. And so you can kind of trial balloon, some things that you could do and figure out whether that leader really wants to work with you or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The coaching kind of vibe, right? When you're in there. Okay.
Yeah. You're sharing some of your ideas. You're seeing how open they are to those ideas. And that will give you an indication of what the future working relationship could look like. So like, it starts with, pick the right place that wants what you have to offer. And then, assuming that you've found something like that, make sure that you're working on the right things. And if you're building the relationship even during the interview process, chances are you're going to be, off to a great start.
Yeah.
Through your work with People Leader Accelerator,
Yeah.
you work with many senior HR leaders. What are some of the biggest capability gaps that you see when you meet with them?
Oh boy. Well, People Leader Accelerator, largely people that join our cohorts are the head of the function at investor-backed companies of 50 to 500 employees, or maybe a direct report to the head of the function at a larger, later stage company. So what are the bigger gaps? In a lot of ways, they're already aware that there is a financial acumen gap. There's often, I want to put this, I guess I'll just say it really directly.
Yeah, please.
There's a courage gap.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And let's definitely talk more about that, right?
Yes.
I can't just leave it there.
Yeah, let's table
now
this.
I'm on that. Let's table this. Yeah.
Yeah. So a courage gap often exists in HR leaders that know that there's some distance between them and the business, some distance between themselves and the rest of the executive team, right? But they've already taken a really meaningful step forward by saying, I observe that there's a gap between what I'm doing and where I want to be. And I want to be a C-suite member. I want to be a growing, even more effective HR leader. So it's not people that are failing that start the program, like so much the opposite. It's people that are like actively growing. But that courage gap comes from often being willing to be curious. Like, help me understand how to calculate EBITDA for our org. Like you can Google that, you can ask your favorite LLM, but a lot of HR leaders will still openly say, and please stop saying I'm not a numbers person. Don't do that. Like excise that from your language.
Yeah.
Because that just blows up our credibility.
Yeah.
Right? So the courage gap is around understanding the financials enough to work on the right things, understanding your org enough to work on the right things, being willing to have some of those vulnerable conversations to learn. There's often another courage gap, which is I'm afraid of looking stupid by proposing something that gets shot down. But being proactive and proposing solutions to problems that you know are real is what makes you the leader, right? To be a leader, you have to lead. You have to lead from the front. You need to show those solutions against real pain points.
Yeah.
And so, if it's your first proposal and you spend, 3 weekend nights trying to sort it out, and you've got like a giant PowerPoint, presentation of some sort, and it falls flat, you'll probably be nervous about doing it again. But again, this courage gap is something that an effective executive will bridge pretty quickly. And that comes with the confidence of, I know it's important to my org, I know it's important to my stakeholders, and I know how I can contribute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that moment like for you? Do you remember having that in your career where you're like, okay, I have this like little gap, I need to kind of figure it out? What was that moment for you?
I feel like to an extent I was missing that gene. Like if anything, my issue is that I've been assertive to a fault. And that has been...
That's helpful.
Yeah, like honestly, that's helped balance out in my mentoring of others. Like I've been very assertive, and often a lot of other HR leaders are service oriented to a fault. And so I'm making stuff happen and they're trying to serve. And if we can meet in this Goldilocks zone in the middle, you can do wonderful things. Yeah, so, I remember being in my early 20s, staying at the office late at night I'd calendar blocked a strategic time. And I would think about how can I help the org make money? And I was running Excel spreadsheets late at night, trying to figure out how do we reduce overtime costs of third shift warehouse. And that was like, let's run 4 10s and let's run 3 12s on the weekend, and like weird calculations like that I was very excited to share with the general manager of the Pepsi bottling territory that I was partnered with.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Do you have a segment on that in People Leaders Accelerator, the courage gap?
We talk about that more of as a theme.
Okay.
We spend really the first 4 weeks of the 16-week curriculum laying the foundations of what is the work. Right? If we don't really understand that the job is to be that internal management consultant, to identify the pain points, to point out and suggest some solutions, then you're not really operating in the same frame.
Right.
Yeah.
Just as you're saying, you need that confidence to have the courage to have those conversations.
Once you understand that the prize is credibility and that the baseline is like, this is the expectation to lead this function, then people grow a lot more courageous along the way. Yeah. Like you won't fail from making the wrong proposal. You'll fail from never making a proposal at all. You'll fail by asking too many times to be told what to do and being told the wrong things to work on. Like, do the holiday party for us.
The dreaded holiday party planning. Oh my gosh.
I know. In terms of talent strategy, just switching it up from what we're talking about here, have you had an influence, would you say, on talent strategy when you are working as a CHRO?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
If you frame the role as an internal management consultant, one of the best ways that you can impact the success of the organization is to make sure that the right team is in place at the top of the org. Yeah. And so People Leader Accelerator is my passion project, and it's, the book and the program and the community and all of that. Like, I do light up, I love doing this. And the other work that I do today is almost exclusively around talent strategy at private equity-backed organizations. Yeah. So I work with 2 different investors. One's a lower middle market healthcare investor. Another is more of a diversified lower middle market investor. Typically control investments, several billion under management by both of them, with a couple dozen companies all in. And so, like just this morning at 6 a.m. Vegas time, which is extra early, I was on a call with the CEO and his whole leadership team, talking through an assessment that I'd done of their org. So, do we have the right team in place to double our revenue and get to a transaction in the next 2 years? So I won't name the investor, won't name the company, but that's constantly the type of thing that I'm working on outside of People Leader Accelerator. Like, I'm still doing the work. Nice. And I'm privileged enough to be able to do that work in a way that's really impactful at the C-suite, where you can see the impact on the multiple and the exit value. And in this case, we were removing a C-suite role, delayering, so the CEO got more direct interface with marketing, because the real opportunity of this organization was to increase top of funnel and an effective marketing. Anyway, I could go pretty far down the path, but do you have the right team in place to get to where you want to be? That is a great role for an HR leader to play.
You talked about internal management consultant quite a bit. If you could drill down top 3 competencies or areas that would make this person successful being in that role, does that change whether it's in a startup of 50 employees versus 200 employees? That's my first question. And then secondly, like, what are the top 3 that you would have to pick?
I think there'd be a lot of similarity. I think there'd be a lot of commonality, whether you're at a smaller, scrappier org versus a larger, more mature enterprise. The presentation might differ, but the competencies might be different. So the level of detail and thoroughness and political savvy is I think at a higher bar I don't know if it's, actually, let me break that down a little bit. If you're at a big enterprise organization, there's more there are lots of powerful people and lots of dynamics at play. Is that more, though, than at a founder-led organization with active investors and family and friends that are often involved in the C-suite. I don't know which one's more complex, but they each have their own dynamics there.
Yeah.
And so like just being aware of those dynamics. So political savvy, I think, is a competency that is necessary to play that management consultant role. Another competency that I might call out would be curiosity. Like, be curious to understand what's important to those stakeholders, what's important to your org, rather than pushing your own blind ideas. Again, that imaginary list of good HR practices that everybody does. Like, be curious and root it in the needs of today. And maybe this is my bias, but I think some analytical ability. Doesn't mean you need to be an accountant. Doesn't mean that you need to have an MBA, but some analytical ability to be able to show we went from X to Y, and that resulted in Z dollars. If you're just doing stuff, like blindly thrashing around with your programs, it's awfully tough to get the dollars to do the next initiative. Yeah. So demonstrating difference, and I think I'd call that some analytical ability.
Would you include influencing within the political savviness piece of that, right? Because there's sort of, you have to understand where people are coming from and how you talk to different people will be different. The approach, I mean.
100%. Yeah. Okay. Political savvy, influencing, it all, I think, starts with understanding your stakeholders. Yeah. Understanding the power dynamics between them, with you. Like, is this a triangle, a square, or an octagon? Actually, it makes me think of MMA. Like, some of these environments are like an octagon for sure. So being aware of those dynamics will help you be a lot more successful.
Yeah, I think that's helpful. I love that, how you put the top 3.
It's definitely a common theme as well. It's just understanding your organization, your position, and going from there.
And I mean, it seems so simple, right? Like, when you boil it down, it's like, hey, let's not forget, you need to always be curious. But I feel like once we get to a level of expertise, again, when you're a functional leader and you're an expert, you're a pro, it's like, yep, I can do this. But then you kind of forget to flex the muscle of being curious, I feel. Yeah. So I feel like I've done that too.
I think it's a bit of laziness too, because I feel like some people just think, oh, this is how you do sales. This is how you do marketing. This is how you do talent.
Yeah.
But it's
playbook
different.
is a playbook, but it's different. Yeah. Especially right now with talent now.
Yeah. Well, that happens often when you're hiring for a role, is you want somebody that's been there, done that.
Yes.
And like, hey, you did it at Gusto. Can you go run the same play for us?
Yeah.
Or you did it at Figma. Can you go like do what you did for them here? Yeah. And maybe that works, but that's where the critical thinking and the curiosity should apply of like, okay, you want their results, but is this actually the same environment?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I think we picked your brain quite a bit.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Great
Was that a lot
questions.
for you in the morning?
It's what, like 11 o'clock? I'm great.
I know, right?
Good.
Great. Well, thank you so much. It was so lovely to have you. And we hope you enjoy the rest of your week here with Transform.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.